is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Sean Spencer, one half of that dynamic duo that is Let's Talk Football. And ladies and gentlemen, it's Thursday, not Wednesday, but we're still here for you on this Thirsty Thursday. And you know who I'm with on Thursday? My guy, Mr. Will Creamer. What up, Will?
Hey, man, one day later, but it's all good. We got a whole lot of stuff we've been thinking about all week, so I'm glad we're able to get this in.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely want to get into this. Appreciate you all coming in here and watching, and I'm gonna give you love because you are in here. Not a Commanders fan. We're not Rams fans, but it's all good, my friend. It is all good. You're welcome for McVay, by the way.
And we want one of your Rams coaches, by the way. We'll get into that.
We
want one of those Rams guys.
Tell them to come on over. Oh yeah, absolutely. So hey, we are here. This is another week. The divisional round of the playoffs has ended. Some things are different. Some things stayed the same. Give me 1 second. I need to freshen something up. The spot on the couch for the Cowboys. Give me 1 second. Let me. There you go, Dallas. I got a seat for you right over here. The last spot on the couch actually went to the Giants. Sit in a chair. We got a foldable chair up against the wall for you. How you like that, Cowboys? The Dallas Cowboys lose again. And so do the Giants. It's always sweet. Unfortunately, one of the NFC East teams, the one that we beat, is still playing and has a shot to go to the Super Bowl. Will, real quick, just on them, did you expect this? Did you see Philly thriving and the Giants and the Eagles and Giants and the Cowboys losing?
Absolutely, man. Philly is so good. If it wasn't for their coach being just a punk that embodies everything about their fans, I would love it. I mean, if you take away the uniform, I love the players. Jalen Hurts, I think, is a great story. I loved him at Alabama, Oklahoma. I love the success. They've just got a good team. So
they do.
If you take away the rivalry, it's like they're fun to watch. It's a fun brand of football to watch. So yeah, I mean, I saw that coming, and I didn't think the 49ers would have as much trouble with Dallas. So I mean, there's a lot of anger over some things, but hats off to Dallas for 3/4 of that game was pretty tight. So they did. They stuck with them, and like I said, I really thought the 49ers were going to roll that game.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not going to lie. This might be sacrilegious, but I definitely called my dear friend Janae at halftime because I thought I was like you. I thought, dude, Dallas is right here with them. They just if they get one of these defensive plays where it turns into a fumble, turns into an interception, this thing could turn. And still, when it was 16-12, you're like, dude, Diggs had an opportunity for pick six, dropped it, completely dropped it, and then they score. Now, in hindsight, thank you. That was great. But at the same time, I was on board with you, man. And I told Janae, I said, I can't even lie about it. If y'all keep Dan Quinn, which they did, or it looks like will happen, yeah. I would say y'all, that defense is going to be solid, but y'all still have issues. Oh, thanks, Kat. We see you're here.
I'm replying to her. I got it's Redskins gear, Kat. It's Redskins gear.
Let her know. Let's go. Yo, we do want to quickly move on. This is a person who's not a current member of the Washington Commanders football team, Redskins, but he was a past member and a solid defensive lineman for us. Just had a major stroke, man. Prayers go out to Chris Baker in a full recovery from having a major stroke, and he told us about this, didn't he, Will? Like, what did you hear?
Yeah, I mean, he announced it. He allowed TMZ to get wind of it to post it, but there was some rumblings on Twitter. A couple Skins podcasts like ourselves have some connections, and they said that they had heard this. But we were kind of waiting until it became official. And yeah, he did. And I mean, Chris Baker was a fan favorite when he was here. Mm-hmm. He had the emotion, he had the dance after he would get a sack. Yeah. So the fans really liked him. So seeing that obviously he was suffering something but it caught a lot of people. They got real concerned.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So hey, like I said, we know he's not a current member, but he is definitely somebody that
part of the fam.
Yeah, definitely part of the family, and we would like to send him some love, send some prayers on a speedy recovery. Mm-hmm. He's back and kind of up to par, but after something like that, you just definitely want to keep prayers that he continues to stay healthy. But thankfully, it is where it is, where he is kind of on that road to recovery, and it's not the other way.
Well, it's
Life
kind of
threatening.
interesting you say that, Sean, and I wasn't sure if I was going to bring that up, but
Oh,
unfortunately, there's a lot of folks down here. I'm in South Carolina, Columbia, USC. I knew someone that from my time at South Carolina, and somebody in a similar situation this week suffered a stroke.
ooh.
He wasn't able to pull through from it, and so there's a lot of folks that I know. The guy was under 40 years old, so it's kind of rattled a lot of people down here. So like you say, I'm so prayers go up to Chris Baker's family on his recovery, and prayers go to Ian's family and as they're dealing with the loss of their son, because it's like I said, it's really rocked some people down here. Obviously that type of stuff catches you by surprise, and there's some folks that are really close to him. It's we lost a good one is basically how people feel.
Yeah, prayers to that family for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, I cannot say this enough. Men, especially, get yourself checked. Make sure all your vitals, everything is on par. Some of this stuff you can't control, but at the same time, better to be safe than sorry. You said he was under 30. That's you and me are right on that edge of 40. Or I mean, under 40, you mean? So we're right on the edge of 40. Oh, that's terrible, man. Prayers to his family and all of that. So, yeah, hey, life, man, life. Just count your days. Just be very, very happy, very happy. But this is the playoff time of the year, and today is January 26th. And Will, this is a special day and
anniversary. Can I sing?
Yes, sing the song, brother.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, on this date in 1992, Washington defeated the Buffalo Bills 37-24. MVP Mark Rippon. The score is not indicative of the game because this thing was 24-0. We got a touchdown right after half after Kurt Govea intercepted Jim Kelly. We ended up scoring. That's when you see, if you ever see the yearbook or the highlight video, that's when they ran it to Riggs, and you see Mark Rippon running up the field.
He does the goofiest run. Yes.
I still get chills thinking about that moment. It was beautiful, man. What you talked to me before, and you said you weren't in the States. You were in Japan.
For this one, I was.
Oh, you were in
the Doug Williams one. I was in Japan.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, man. What a game. I still remember at the beginning of the season, my dad came in to say goodnight, and he's like, so they're predicting the Redskins to be the Super Bowl favorites this season. And I was like, really? Had no idea that they were going to be good. Yeah. And I mean, magical is the only way to describe the 91 season.
Yes.
It was just amazing how they would just put the pedal on everybody and just destroy them, And then we got to that Buffalo game, and I was nervous because they were in the Super Bowl the year before. Didn't matter. They knew Gibbs and his staff knew what Buffalo wanted to do. They stopped it, and they knew they couldn't stop our passing attack, and it was beautiful. Beautiful, that game.
Absolutely beautiful. Now, that was the year that I really first started to dive into football, like really reading cards, watching every highlight, all that stuff. Still very young, but that was also the season that I understood the pain because I didn't want to lose. I didn't understand that we could lose because we were amazing. So my mom tells a story that after the preseason game, we lost all of our preseason games that year. And I was irate. And my mom was almost in jeopardy of not even watching the season. She's like, you can't react this way just in case they lose. You can't do that. Well, once then after that, we go through the month of September not being scored on at home. You know what I mean? Our defense just blanks everybody. So by the time we get to the Dallas game, I'm sitting here like, Miami Dolphins, who? We're about to go 16-0. Bring us back to earth.
Yeah.
The Dallas game. And then I'll never forget because we ended up beating the Rams, but then we played the Cardinals, and I think we went down like 14-0 at the half. And I was just like, they can't do it. I'm sick of it. And my dad was then like, dude, you're not watching this. This is ridiculous. These guys are good. he said that day, he said, these guys are going to the Super Bowl and you're crying over a daggone. This doesn't matter. Da, da, da. And they ended up coming back. And my dad just walked by me and said, see, what did I tell you? And I'm just sitting, okay. You know what I mean? I was into it. I was into it. I remember everything. I got a haircut the rainy day of the seat cushion game.
Yes.
In Dion with MC Hammer and Vander Holyfield on the sidelines. And then killing the daggone Lions was beautiful. And then that game, a lot of it is not a blur, but it was just so like you said, it was just so magical. Like only thing I remember from that game is that at the beginning of the game, I had to use the bathroom. Okay. And I was just so hooked that I was like, I cannot miss anything. And I didn't let on that I had to go to the bathroom until Bill started kicking onside kicks, which is the middle of the fourth quarter, right? And then I'm like, and my dad's like, why are you rubbing your legs? I gotta go to the bathroom. He's like, go to the bathroom. And so I go, and he's like, how long have you been holding it? I was like, since kickoff. He was like, are you kidding me? This is crazy. So you start to understand when it started to really come about for me. But it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. But I do want to ask this, because we were talking about this. Is this your favorite Super Bowl? I mean, now in hindsight, being able to know about all three, we obviously weren't around for the first one, but is this your favorite one, or do you have another one?
This one has to be, because I was in Japan for the '88 Super Bowl, the Doug Williams, Ricky Sanders game. Now, Ricky Sanders was my favorite player growing up. He and so, you know, I was also 6 years old at the time. Right. So it's hard for me to really remember. I think I saw part of the game, but I don't think I was able to stay up for the whole game. We did get the Super Bowl in Japan. You did get that. So the 91 Super Bowl was the one where, like you said, that's when the year before, I remember we lost. I think we lost to the Niners 28-10 in the division round of the playoffs. And then, and so I started to, follow the team then, but the 91 season, like you, that's when I got hooked and I watched every single game from the get-go. Absolutely, it's my favorite. And my favorite memory is just what you talked about, the goofy Mark Rippon run. It was so great. It was so great.
It was amazing. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I do go to the 88 one, and like you said, like we were six. We're not there wasn't real like I can't tell you each individual play from just a memory, even though I have watched that game countless times. But it was the significance of it. My parents definitely felt that was something that I needed to watch. Obviously, Doug Williams, first African-American quarterback to start and win the MVP, the whole nine. At that time in 1988, obviously hindsight's 2020, but there's a lot going on, and having that positive role model was solid. But for me, my mom, who's a huge fan, my dad could take football or leave it. He likes it, but not really. My mom is the one who's just sold, like diehard. And she always tells me every time we talk about it is that I would say the Bronco Busters. We're the Bronco Busters. We're going to bust some Broncos. I didn't know what I was saying, but it was, that's the memory that we have. So that game for me, and also because my dad taped every Super Bowl on VHS. So from about Super Bowl 20, I want to say about Super Bowl 20 to about Super Bowl 33.
Okay.
That's when I started taking over. About Super Bowl 33, 34. Every one of those, the entire game is on a VHS tape. Oh, wow. So that Super Bowl 22 was the first one that I uncovered. I actually taped over it. I taped over like the first half of Cool Runnings. So So I missed like half of the 18 play, the second quarter. But I just remember watching it and falling in love with Super Bowl commercials, falling in love with just the old McDonald's commercials and just how just crazy everything was in 1988. And it was a snapshot of that time. And for that, to me, even though I didn't understand it like I did the Super Bowl 26, that one was that it always sticks here. That's when I knew football was for me. Washington was for me, period. Then. So, absolutely.
Yeah. Beautiful memories. Such happy times. Who would have thought 31 years later, we're still just wanting to win a doggone playoff game, man.
Just a playoff game. You know what I mean?
We just want to make the playoffs right now. That's all we want. Just make the playoffs.
I feel like when playoffs come up, like Jim Mora's just sitting there.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
That is us in September.
There it is.
They go with the predictions, and I'm like, what playoffs? I just wanted December to remember right now. My bar is low.
Can we just still be relevant
Right.
in the winter? Like, come on now. So yeah, absolutely. But look, hey, and I know we don't want to get off the positives, but we have to get off at some point and talk about the nature of the Washington Commanders at this point. And where else do you start but with the owner? With the ownership issues. Obviously, there's been a lot of talks that things are kind of moving. They're moving forward. However, the front runner, even though we talked about a couple names a week ago, but the front runner seems to be coming out as maybe potentially Bezos, because what New York Post said that there is a chance that he might sell his shares in the Washington Post to then try to buy the Commanders. But you have been on here time and time again, just talking about how Snyder and Bezos don't like each other, and Snyder really does not want to give the team to Bezos. So how much can we trust this information, and what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, truthfully, I don't know if we can trust this story at all. So I did hear, I was listening to a pod. It was a Washington Post reporter. He said, "Boy, I had an interesting Monday." He goes, and that's all I'll say about it. So he wouldn't go into it. So who knows, like, what is actually happening behind the scenes? But what I do know, and this was kind of, someone had mentioned this, they're like, Dan Snyder likes to feel like he wins trades, like he wins transactions. So in his mind, if Jeff Bezos sells the Washington Post, is that going to appease his ego? So now he can trade it to him, which will be interesting, in that matter. I don't know. But my thought about, I don't know how credible it is. My question to you and to just like anybody is, do you care who the new owner is as long as it's not Dan Snyder?
Right. I don't want his mini-me. I don't want another guy that's going to follow exactly, the pitfalls that he had. Like, I obviously don't want that. But yeah, it's gotten to that point where right now we're just hoping for anything, grasping at straws, whoever. Like, that's why we're coming here and having these conversations about these updates on ownership, because we just have gotten to the point where even LeVar Arrington's coming out here, saying, going back and forth. We know how we feel about him, but for him to sit there and even be like, we don't want you, even him, you know what I mean? It's just getting to that point where it's like, it has to change. Right. It has to change, and far sooner, the better.
Yeah. I will say this. I am a little bit skeptical about Bezos. Some people are like, oh, he's got the most money, he'd be great. I don't know. I think he kind of rubs people the wrong way sometimes. I don't know about his management style, and even his management style at the Washington Post, or like, do his workers love him? I don't know if that's the case. Whereas, so I don't know how much I'm all about Jeff Bezos. Whereas, like, as we've said, I think if I could be picky, if I could get someone who's from the DC area and has memories of the Redskins, just like we do, and feels those glory days of RFK, then I will, that would be what I'd rather prefer. But it's not my, like, gotta have it. As long as it's anybody but Snyder, man, I'll be happy, at least for the first couple of years, to find out, until we find out if they're just as bad.
Yeah, that is, and again, that's where it is, because what we want is success, but also what we want is to take the black cloud from over our name, because a lot of what we're going to be talking about, especially today, is directly affected by the owner. We talk about, offensive coordinators potentially coming here. They're not going to want to come if you have a Dan Snyder over top with the potential to just not have his coaches and players, and their best interest at heart, right? And then also you go to players. Players don't want to come and play for a guy that's already in the media with all this crap on him. You know what I mean? So the players aren't liking him. The coaches, it's time. It's been time for years, and we need it. I think we deserve this, man. He's got to go, but.
Plus,
let's deal in reality. Yeah,
there was a report/rumor that said RFK could be back in play if Snyder is out.
Come on,
and everybody is saying that's where we want to be.
I think
what they mentioned was RFK could be the stadium, FedEx land could be the team's headquarters.
Okay.
Essentially, like not doing the whole all-encompassing, because RFK is, there's only so much land there that you can use.
Yeah.
But essentially would be saying that the headquarters could move to the land some of the land that the team already owns, and that RFK could be up for grabs again if Snyder. And that's what everyone's thought. It's like, if Snyder goes, how quickly does DC come back and go, hey, about RFK, we got use for that land. We got some land here that we'd like you to.
We could work with you on this,
especially because RFK is zoned for recreational purposes. I mean, so you fit within. I mean, the RFK land is owned, I think, by the government, but it has specific, markings on there or deeds on there, and recreational sports is on there, which is how RFK was able to be built in the first place. So the ability to say we're going to tear this down and put in something new, it's already there for like approval. You just have to, so it could be pretty easy to get done.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't know, those of you that might not have been around when we were still in RFK, woo, that place rocked. You can feel the momentum. You can feel the energy. And there's no place in the world that I'd rather have our fans saying this. I mean, that place, you saw how the stadium just rocked. And yeah, it's not one of these new SoFi and the Las Vegas, all these crazy stadiums. Yeah, but the feel, the feel like, I mean, you were right there with each other. It's close knit. It's only 55,000 seats in there, so it was crammed in there. But man, I'm telling you, it's a feeling. And if you go back to those players say the same thing. It's a feeling. It's just the energy that's in that place. People didn't want to come to play there because they knew it was going to rock. You know what I mean? So, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, hey, it's all encompassing. We got to get Dan Snyder out of here. We'll hit you with the updates as soon as we get them. But right now, we're still under him. So let's hope things change. One of the things that's also affected by that, as you know, Scott Turner is out as our offensive coordinator. Well, we have a search. We've been looking. We currently have, if I'm not mistaken, interviewed 5 guys as of this week. Kenny Zampese, Pat Shermer, Eric Studesville, Thomas Brown, and Charles London. And then there's a couple other names that, have been kind of circling around us. Greg Roman, he just got let go out of Baltimore. Byron Leftwich got let go from Tampa Bay. And then a name that you had mentioned, Anthony Lynn. Yeah. But they're still going right now, right?
Right. So sorry, you're just starting to see the dominoes fall. The Panthers just hired Frank Reich. Yeah. The Broncos appear to be on the verge of hiring D'Amico Ryans. And so you're going to start seeing some of these jobs start getting filled now that when the coach comes in place, kind of, what happens. Plus, the other thing, Anthony Lynn works for the 49ers right now. The NFL rules has it where if your team is in the playoffs, you can't be interviewing while they have a game. So, as soon as the playoffs started, you had a couple interviews. The Eagles coaches all did interviews, both the offensive coordinator and defense coordinator, because they had a bye week that week. So they were free. But, anyone else, Dan Quinn had to wait. Everybody else had to wait. So I think after this weekend's conference championship games, we'd asked for permission to interview Anthony Lynn. He would have the ability. D'Amico Ryans can then go interview for a second, with the Broncos, kind of make it official. Who knows what else, some of these other coaches now will be free to do some interviewing. So you're going to see a few more, but also it's allowed, there's been kind of this stall on just any hirings happening. And so we've been able to take our time with this. Some of the stall is by our own, choices. Like you mentioned, we don't have an owner. We may have an ownership sale. And some of these guys are willing to talk, but they also may be pulling themselves out, like a Frank Reich said thanks, but no thanks. Darrell Bevell said thanks, but no thanks. Because if we get a new owner, who knows if Ron Rivera is going to be around much beyond next year. And do one of these guys want to leave where they're currently out to be an offensive coordinator for a year and then potentially be out of a job? or is that going to be their chance to put a mark, show what they could do, and then maybe they become a head coach with us or somewhere else, or just kind of show it. So it's kind of been a little bit of a stall so far. Now, this week we had the unprovens were interviewed. So last week we had Pat Shurmur. He's been offense coordinator before. Ken Zampini's been with us. We know who he is. Charles London has never been offense coordinator before. He's with the Falcons. This week was Eric Studesville, Dolphins assistant head coach, running backs coach. Thomas Brown, the Rams assistant head coach, running backs coach. So there's kind of a theme there. They're involved in the run game, coming up with the run fits, the blocking, the schemes, that type of stuff. That goes with what Martin and Ron said, where they want to be a heavy run team. So you can kind of see, where they're coming from. But those coaches are also coming from very successful running teams. Mm-hmm. Falcons, the Dolphins, and the Rams. So there's some intrigue there by these guys. While they've never been an offense coordinator, it's who have they been learning under? Mike McDaniel, who's under the Kyle Shanahan tree, Sean McVay. Eric Studesville's been around forever. The players love him. He's bounced from all kinds of people, been around with so many different, defensive coaches that he's learned from. So he's been around. So now that we've interviewed 5, last week you said, I'm leaning Ken Zampese. What are your thoughts after 1 week later? Has your thoughts changed at all?
Well, and something that we're going to discuss a little bit after this with the loss of our defensive coach, Chris Harris. One of the things that we kept talking about when he left is the energy he brought to practice, the energy. So one of the things that I've been looking at is some of the guys that we looked at, Thomas Brown. We talked about him being a part of the Rams, got a legit running game, but he's a fresh face, high energy. Yeah. Very high energy, very matter of fact, but he's also about relationships. I mean, this guy has been around kind of coaching running backs for the last several years. He's been around people with the likes of Melvin Gordon. He was at Georgia with the likes of Chubb and Sony Michel. So, I mean, we got 2 studs in Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson that could fit right in. But this guy is also somebody, he's the assistant head coach of the Rams. McVay likes him. You know what I mean? So that could be something huge. Now, the issue may be, does Rivera want to bring in a guy that eventually is going to be maybe interviewing for that head coach job? You know what I mean? Does he want to do that? But at the same time, this is the type of job that if you make it happen here, I look at Karlaftis over at the Giants. If you can do good with a team that might not be that great, that could bump you up even higher. And that's something I'm really interested in. And his just the new fresh face. Maybe there are some guys, Shurmur and Studesville, some guys that we've seen before. Even Zampese's been in-house. But getting somebody from outside, new and fresh, a new regime, he's about that run scheme. You know what I mean? That zone run that's kind of similar, kind of where we're at. And this is something I think is going to be huge. Now, as far as the pieces, I maybe lean to some other directions, but just in the fact that this is the guy that's going to kind of maybe bring back something that we lost in all the energy from losing Chris Harris. Thomas Brown is somebody that I'm like, oh yeah, let me give him a little bit more. He'd get a second interview from me. You know what I mean? Because it's one of these things where it's like a lot of people are like, oh, this guy's new. We don't know. But I kind of feel like this guy might be just that next up and coming dude that he gets and posts another good year, especially with us, that, he might just be a 1-year guy, but it would be a solid setup for us. So I think he would fit well. That's kind of where I'm at right now. What are you looking at?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way you do. And based on like the local media, this is the only guy that gets them really excited. And it's a little bit of that. It's that Sean McVay stamp of approval that they're like, okay, well, that means something. The fact that he is traveled. He's got a little bit more experience in college. Fun fact, he was coaching here at the University of South Carolina. Then he left to go to Miami with Mark Richt, who was his head coach at Georgia. Nice. Man, people were crushed here. They're like, this guy's an up-and-coming. Like, we just lost a good one. So I think he's got a lot going for him. And just like you said, he'd be that younger type coordinator, that new age thinking where, you look at a Zampese and a Shurmur, they've been around. Shurmur, what he did got him to be a head coach twice. he's not going to change for the new ways of the game that much. He knows what worked for him, so like that absolutely, does give you a lot of excitement. Same thing. I'm intrigued by Charles London too. Same thing. If he's been with the Falcons and he's under Arthur Smith, who I can't stand him and his father. That became clear.
Yeah.
But he also had a really good running game and a really good offense.
Yes.
So it's something like that too. It's that new age of thinking. I'd be interested in to see about them. I'm also not going to lie. If I could choose between kind of the two leaders in the clubhouse, most likely are Shermer and Zampese, because the thing is Ron going to change his ways? He likes hiring folks that he knows.
Right.
If I had to pick between the two, I would go with Pat Shermer, just because he's been there before. He's done it. He's coached some of these quarterbacks. He got Case Keenum to look like all pro that year in Minnesota.
Right.
So it's like, if you're gonna roll with a Sam Howell type quarterback, or that type of stuff, I think I'd rather have Shermer. I've heard he's a pretty good teacher over Zampese, but I'm with you, man. Like the idea of Thomas Brown that's the one that gets you kind of like, let's see.
Right. And that's one of the reasons I want to go for him, because like I said, fresh face. But to your point, and what might actually seem more like something Washington does, at least under this regime, is get a guy that has been around, who has coached, and who can adjust to the system. We all know that Shermer he's touted as that QB whisperer. He's the guy that, like you said, we talk about what he did to Case Keenum. He had Daniel Jones, and I know I talked about Daniel Jones, and everything was complicated and everything. But then I looked at who was Daniel Jones throwing to in those years? The Darius Slaytons, the Evan Ingrams, who they were looking somewhat decent, and with an injured Saquon and everything else kind of going down. So Shermer one thing I like about him, and the things that I've heard, is that he focuses on the player's strengths. You know what I mean? He focuses on the player's strengths, and he kind of meshes his play. So one thing he'll set up, do a play here, like, well, he'll hit Terry on maybe a slant or something, and then he's building up for that latter part of the game where then Jahan runs a wheel route, and then you pump the slant and you go for the deep. So the plays are starting to mesh, and I don't think it would be as far from what we're doing. Like you said, he knows what works, but he also knows how to fit it kind of with the personnel that we have. So that might be, if things stay as they are with Rivera, Del Rio, though, all these older coaches, that might be the best play, because it's another experienced coach, another one that's kind of moving in here. They can work with the younger quarterbacks. He, kind of meshes with our system. And from what I've heard, man, he's going to bring back, you saw, like you mentioned, Case Keenum, he's going to bring back that explosion in our offense. And with all those weapons we have, the Posse 2.0, it's going to stick, Will. Posse 2.0, McLaurin, Samuel, and Jahan Dotson. Honestly, think about this. The number one might not get all the touches, but if 2 and 3 are blowing it up like we have had at certain parts this year, I'm good with that. And I think Terry will be good with that as well.
Absolutely. No, there's certain things. So I evident you listened to that pod that I sent you too. I can hear some of those nuggets. And shout out to Logan Paulson, for really doing a great a deep dive into Pat Shermer and helping us learn a little bit more about him. That was fantastic that he did. And I know, listen to that. I too was sitting there going, okay, I can be on board with this too. Right. Now here I'm gonna give you two names that could become available next week. Eric Bieniemy, Anthony Lynn, Chiefs, 49ers. Those two names. What are your thoughts? How do they compare to some of the folks we've already spoken with?
I love it. I love Anthony Lynn. I'm not gonna lie, because he has been a coach. He's worked with a lot of good talent. He worked with Herbert. You know what I mean? And then he also has then gone back to coordinator or assistant or things like that, which in my mind is it's big, because he can humble himself. Because when he comes here, he's not going to be the head man. He's going to have to go down to, an assistant position or something like that. He, in my opinion, is hungry. And you can see it with how this offense is run in San Francisco with that running game. Anthony Lynn, in my opinion, was unceremoniously fired after a 9-7 season for the Chargers. I thought that was terrible. If we had other people on, they would say, black coaches, but I'm not going to go down that road. But there is truth to that. But that's for another day.
Right.
But I think he is one of those that's trying to get back to that level. So he is on that proving ground. Like we know he can do it. San Francisco's prime example. Even that San Diego team. I mean, you're still going up against the likes of Denver, who wasn't terrible at. Well, they were pretty bad, but the Chiefs are still solid, and the Raiders had an offense before this year. So you got a guy like Anthony Lynn that knows how to play in a high-powered offense. He knows how to work where you have to sit here and build up that defense so you can go against these quarterbacks, because they had quarterbacks throwing it all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I like him. I really do like Anthony Lynn. That might be a little personal bias from me, and I like him a little bit more than Bieniemy because we know Bieniemy's been under Reed. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like even if he came in from us, it's Reed to Rivera is kind of a, you know what I mean, a drop. So it makes you wonder, because if I'm not mistaken, Bieniemy's not calling plays.
No.
So is he going to do that here? And then all of a sudden we got to figure out, get him. If we're working with a younger quarterback, I need somebody that's going to want to work with him. You know what I mean? Because the way it looks right now, it's either going to be Heineke, it's either going to be Sam Howell, or it's going to be a rookie. You know what I mean? So.
Well, not so fast there on Heineke, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Not so fast there about him. But no, you're right. I love all your points there. And that's kind of the way I feel too, is Anthony Lynn has a little bit of proven, track record. If you're going to look at somebody that, if Ron wants to be in that situation where he knows he can trust, he knows the guy, someone like that, if he doesn't feel comfortable in what could be his final year coaching, I mean, he could be a lame duck coach. The pressure's on year 4 to make the playoffs. He may be too concerned about bringing in a Charles London and Thomas Brown and Eric Studesville, someone who's calling plays for the first time. He actually could be, too leery of bringing in Eric Bieniemy for the same reason. I mean, I think everyone kind of, for lack of a better term, shits all over Eric Bieniemy because he doesn't call plays in Kansas City. He's no different than, London and Thomas Brown. They're not calling plays either, so he's kind of on par with them. My thing with Eric Bieniemy is I don't trust anything. I don't trust any of Andy Reid's sloppies anymore. Yep. He's burned us too many times, so I don't want that. Whereas like Anthony Lynn, like you said, has some experience and he proved himself, and that made him a head coach in San Diego. And he did get canned when he should not. That was unfair to him, on that. Yeah. So I'm with you there. I will say this: I don't know, depending on even the owner's situation, because we don't know. This hire is going to happen before the owner's situation plays out. I don't know if Kyle Shanahan's going to tell him to take that job. He might be like, until Snyder's gone, you do not go there. So,
I was there.
Exactly. He's like, do not put your reputation on this guy. So that, I think in that matter, it's not a done deal. We've asked for permission to interview him, but it hasn't been granted yet, I don't believe. So we'll find out, maybe tomorrow or at the end of after Sunday, if he's interested in talking to us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So let's quickly break this down on some things. I wrote a couple points down of things that I think we need in an OC. Okay. One of those things is the OC. One of the problems we had with Scott Turner is we felt like he did not spotlight our stars. Terry McLaurin. There was many times when Terry McLaurin didn't get a look into the second quarter, and you're sitting here, frustrated out of your mind. We need to have somebody that's going to spotlight our stars. That means if you got to give 20 or 30 carries to Robinson, if you got to give 7-8 targets to McLaurin, do that. We need to get these guys involved. I mean, they're our daggone stars for a reason. You know what I mean? Number 2 was alignment. A lot of that has to do with roster construction. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But at the same time, it's making sure that you and the head coach are on the same page. The wide receivers, running backs, quarterback, line, and all of them are on the same page. So there isn't as much confusion. I felt like at times there were some unnecessary timeouts called throughout the season. A lot of that maybe was because of Carson Wentz, but where we were just looked like what, like this is the product you put on the field, like that Lions game in the first half. It's like, are y'all serious? Like these guys are laughing at us right now. Like, you know what I mean? So we need to have the perfect line, and then we need to have consistency. I hate to go back into it, but there's so many daggone times where you're like Scott Turner, like, oh my God, great play call. Okay, great. And then you go into this rinky dink, bubble screen or 5 wide receiver or, what I'm saying? And it's just like, What this it needs to be consistent and has to be consistent, and we have to fortify our identity. If they say we're running team, that's fine, but let's still. One of the things about that '92 team, we ran the ball. Ricky Irvins, Gerald Rigg, Ernest Beiners. But what do people remember us for? Having the best deep ball quarterback of that year, and having I don't want to misquote, say 40, but I think we had around 40 deep ball plays that we connected on that season, which was the most in the league in that year. That's what we need, that consistency to bring back that explosion. So those are just some of the things I wrote down that I think we need, as in looking at a guy. Do you want to add anything? Where do you feel about those?
Yeah, no, and I just want to add on to like the cohesion part that you mentioned. Making sure that if we have knowing what personnel we have and put them in a place to be successful. I love the thing about featuring some of your star players a little bit more. My next one's going to be something that is quarterback friendly.
Yeah.
Because if we're going to be playing, if there's a chance that we're going to be playing Sam Howell for 17 games or a significant amount, we're giving him a chance to win the job. I want us to make plays that make him successful, like we did in the game against Dallas. We ran some simple plays, simple concepts where you only had to read one or two players to know where am I going with the ball. And I think we want to start with that and then build as the season goes.
Yes.
Because teams are going to catch those tendencies, but then I want to make sure that I want us to start simple and then expand, so that if it is Howell or if it's anybody else coming in for the first time too, it's not, here's my system, here's how smart I am, look what I can do, you better learn it. I want it to be, let's build this together and both be successful.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So, look, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be focused on this, obviously, as more games are completed and, the playoffs get to the Super Bowl and in the offseason, more of these candidates are going to, come available, and we'll start requesting more interviews and everything. But to your point, that black cloud over our head of Dan Snyder, as long as that is here, they're going to think twice. You know what I mean? One of the things on that pod that they said was, be patient but in a hurry. You know what I mean? So you want to take your time and focus, but at the same time, it's like, we want to have, if it's going to be Sam Howell, if we sign Heineke and it's going to be Heineke or even a competition, we want these guys to have the most time possible to get right in the system. Whoever's coming in here, whoever's doing, we need them to have the most time possible to get in the groove, so that we're not having these talks. I went back and looked at some of the talks we had in August and in July about Carson's looking a little funny. Right. He's struggling. And then obviously it came to fruition as soon as the season started. So, yeah, we got to move. But another thing that we are really eager to bring is energy. And that's what we lost this week. Yeah. Washington loses DB coach Chris Harris, who we talked about. You told me about on multiple occasions. Is just high energy, somebody that was a practice warrior, like really got those guys juiced up and amped up and had us practicing really well. And I mean, look, anything you need to see about what this man has done, look at our secondary. Look at the age of the guys that we had playing the majority of the time, the average age, and look how much we improved towards the end of the season, towards the latter part. There was a time when we started Wild Goose and that corner, Christian Holmes. Yeah, we started these guys, and we're just sitting here like, are you serious? What? You know what I mean? But at the same time, to have them kind of get in the groove to the point where you're like, oh, snap. Okay, Wild Goose, I see you, baby.
Danny Johnson.
Case in point. And you see, we've talked about, although we haven't been able to see that often, Brian St. Just. St. Just he's a man out there, but the problem is he can't stay healthy. But that's besides the point. We need this energy. This is a big loss for us, man. What do you think?
Huge loss.
Yeah.
Because for one, this guy's not someone that came from Carolina. He's not a Comanther, as everyone has dubbed all the Ron's old coaches buddies that he brought with him. He came from outside the organization. He was lauded when we hired him, like, oh man, that's a really good pick. And since then, you've seen them. He's developed Benjamin St. Just. He's developed Cam Curl. He developed Derek Forrest. There's hope that that Percy Butler in year 2 will have the Derek Forrest type ascension. So yeah, he really was this. We had in our own building a up and coming next defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
That we lost. So I was really disappointed to hear this. And he went to, I think, Tennessee, and I don't know their roster very well, but I was kind of like, really?
Right.
What do they have that is exciting for you? Now, I do think he became the assistant head coach / DB coach, which I learned here recently. That essentially means you have a lot more say in, he became the defensive passing game coordinator. So he has a lot more say there. It's like they basically call you, a mini coordinator when you have those titles. I don't know. I didn't know that was the case. So he gets to have a little bit more voice in the room now and coming up with their schemes and how they're going to attack. So that's good for him, but big loss for us. Big loss.
That's killer. That's killer. That's great. And look, we're not wishing ill on this. We're saying great move for him. Mm-hmm. Definitely, if he got a higher role and, better position, he's definitely climbing the ladder. And we thank him for, his service in Washington, because like I said, that defense, that especially that secondary was noticeably a hole of ours coming into the season. And we definitely turned that around, definitely through the middle of the season, and it really proved beneficial for us going down the stretch.
I will say this: I might have an idea who I'd like to be his replacement. Now that Frank Reich has been named head coach at Carolina, I've got like a man crush on Steve Wilks, and I love that guy as a coordinator. I think he's incredible, and he's got ties with Ron, and who knows, maybe he can come in here and. Give me Wilks, give me Jack Del Rio battling it into schemes, man. Give me Steve Wilks in Washington, please.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely, and yeah, I've definitely been picking up on him. As you know, I did the NFC South show and I did the Commanders. I mean, we're basically the Commanders anyway, so I figured I know pretty much. I know where all their players are going. Right. You know what I mean? So I do love that. I do love Steve. I love Wilks because that place. I mean, you think about when he came in, you had CMC. Gone. Robbie Anderson's gone. Baker, that failed. Darnold was still hurt, so you were running with PJ Walker, Chuba Hubbard. You know what I mean? Donta Foreman. Like, you were running with stars. You were running with like second and third stringers and beating the likes of. Now this is a bad Tom Brady led Buccaneers team, but cleaning their clocks, almost running for 200 yards in that game, and just keeping that team together where that defense was shining towards the end of the season. So, yeah, I'm all on board with Steve Wilks coming here, especially the connection to him and Ron. Oh, yeah, I'm with that.
Yeah, that's the one connection of a commander. I'm like, come on, bring it.
But to your point, that is the one thing. That is one of the reasons why I was kind of towards Thomas Brown earlier and some of these other guys that are outside coming in, because that has been dubbed us. We are the Commanders. We are bringing everybody that's a castaway or used to be somebody in Carolina to Washington. You know what I mean? And it's just like, come on, man. Like, no disrespect to them or whatever, but with the exception of the 15-1 year, it didn't really work for y'all out there. You know what I mean? So you're not just continually bringing mediocrity is here. It's not
correct.
You know what I mean? It's not suiting. I don't like.
And look what's happened here in DC. 3 years of 7 wins, and 8
mediocrity. Absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a quick breather, and then we'll be right back because we have to talk about this offseason and the guys that might be on their way out. We'll be right back.
Dun, 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 dun.
Let's go. The Washington Commanders. There it is. Yeah, buddy. This is Washington Football Weekly. I'm your boy, Sean Spencer, with my guy, Mr. Will Kramer. And it just occurred to me that if you don't know what I'm wearing, you could potentially think I'm wearing a Cowboy shirt. So I'm just going to scroll down. This is West Virginia, not the Dallas Cowboys. My fiance's amazing sister, Kim Thompson, is a huge West Virginia fan living out in West Virginia, and she gave me this for Christmas, and I just love it. It feels so good. It's airy, so it can breathe. I need it. So I definitely had to wear it. Not a Cowboys. Oh, Washington.
Right.
Let's get it.
I saw that. I did earlier. I'm like,
I was looking at it like, oh no, just the way it looks. I was like, oh dang. Yeah, buddy. Evening, ladies and gents. What is going on? I don't know who that one is.
Know. I don't see him on the page either just yet.
Yeah, so I don't know. But let's go into it. And we might be here for a little bit of time. Commanders 2023 expiring contracts. And I'm going to bring this up just to take a look at some of these names that are on here, and I'll try to read them over really quickly. We have Wes Schweitzer, Deron Payne, Trey Turner, Cam Sims, Taylor Heineke, F.A. Obata, Tyler Larson, John Bostic, David Mayo, Jonathan Williams, Danny Johnson, Nate Gary, Nick Martin, Wes Martin, brothers, Jeremy Reeves, and let me clean this bottom part real quick.
Is it Kaliki Hudson?
Milo. Rashad Wild Goose, Eli Wolf, and Cole Holcomb. Last but most certainly not least, Cole Holcomb.
Not least, no.
No. So looking at that, Will, let me know what are your thoughts? I mean, I think obviously the one that we definitely bring up to the top is Deron Payne. We know this is the year that he has been 100% going after that contract. He did not disappoint at all. Now into the Pro Bowl. You know what I mean? So what is that the number one goal? And then from there, where do we go?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm looking at. Oh, by the way, it's Anton that came in. My Facebook feed finally refreshed, and I got to see him. So hey, Anton.
What up, Anton?
So what I'm looking at here, honestly, we don't have a whole lot of impactful players that have expiring contracts that we have to make a decision on. So that part is fortunate. The big overall theme, though, is we've got a massive one to be considering, and that's Deron Payne. And what are we going to do about that? Because for starters, we got two starters. Holcomb and Payne are the two starters, but everyone else are backups or depth guys. Yeah, I agree with Anton. Reeves needs to get he's an absolute what he proved there.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not even worried about that. I think they know that we'll get that one done. But other than that, I mean, we've got two starters and that's it. So from that standpoint, we're all looking at depth pieces there, but we got the big one. So you want to get in and talk about him? Start off with Deron Payne? Let's do it. Definitely. So this is a tough one, all right? And this is where I'm real intrigued to see what the team does because they're in a big dilemma. So you got Deron Payne who, last year he balled out. 11.5 sacks. He made the Pro Bowl. You could say he was our best player on defense. If you go definitely by the stats-wise, that looks like it. Going into this last season, I think we wrote him off. I think the coaching staff kind of said he makes us better, so we're going to keep him, but we're going to let him go at the end of the year. And then he has this massive deal, season. And are you going to, the kind of thought is we have a Pro Bowl player. Are we going to let a Pro Bowl player walk out the door?
Right.
And the other thing to think about here is our defensive line anchors the defense. The defense is what helps us win 7 games a season.
Yep.
Are we going to lose a major part of that defense? And are we willing to risk that, and hurt the overall team because we've got this, potential big contract? Now, let's kind of look at the team a little bit so we kind of have an idea of what we got. So you've got Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne. The other two defensive tackles that are in the rotation are John Ridgeway, and then we'll get Fedarian Mathis back.
Right.
So Ridgeway and Mathis are your bigger bodies. They're going to take up blockers. Where Allen and Payne can do that, but then they can also penetrate the passer. All right. So you can't just simply say let Payne go, and we've got Mathis and Ridgeway. We're good,
right?
Because there's an aspect of getting pressure on the quarterback that they don't provide. That's not their thing. So that's what kind of complicates this whole situation. So it's just kind of that. It's just like the background is what we're kind of dealing with. But now we got to look at what's the cost going to be. You know, right now we're already paying Allen $17-18 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to give Deron Payne something similar to that? So now we're paying over $30 million to a position. Philly's doing it with their guys, and they're successful. And the league is changing to where internal pressure is becoming a little bit more important. But that's a lot of money to be putting on the interior. All right. Or if you franchise tag him, you know, you're looking at a 1-year contract, $18-20 million most likely is what he's going to get. Can we really afford to build around that, you know, if we're putting that much money into somebody else? Whereas if you did a long-term deal, you could probably start with the lower cap for next year and kind of build with it. So that's a way to kind of work with the cap. But that's just where we're at. Plus, you also got to look at, does Deron Payne want to be here? 5 straight years of mediocrity and losing.
Right.
Does he want to be here? So before I get into like my thoughts on it, I want to give you a chance to talk now that I've just kind of outlined. This is kind of what they're all dealing with. Like, there's a lot of complexities. It's not just we got a Pro Bowl player. Are you going to keep him or not? You know, there's a lot more to this. What are you kind of thinking?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. You know, does he want to come back? That's, you know, we all know the issues he had at the end of last year where him and Jonathan Allen were kind of going at it on the sidelines, but that seems to be patched up. But B, yes, the money, but then it begs that question. Jonathan Allen and him are a good 1-2 punch, and I almost would liken them to the 1-2 punch we have at running back. And it's kind of like, if you take one of the running backs away, how dangerous is the other one without him? We know if we take Robinson away, Gibson struggles. And, you know, Robinson, maybe he's a little better. And maybe Jonathan Allen can stand alone. But at the same time, the way that they played off of each other, so much so that we talked about Deron Payne's TFLs a year ago. And it was like, you know, it's a little known stat and people, you know, it's not really the sacks and the big name thing, but he's really making a difference in the middle. I just don't know that, especially we're on this trajectory up. If we can pay him, he wants to stay here. I just don't know that you go around that, you go away from that. Definitely, I don't think franchise tag him, because we don't going to get into a situation where it's like, okay, we're paying you for 1 year because you're doing what? To prove that or are we just paying you to keep you here and hope we win? You know,
right.
Let's be direct. Let's be forward and to the point about it and say, we like what you've done. You obviously made a Pro Bowl, X, Y, and Z. If you'll have us, we'll have you. Let's talk. Because like you said, we extend that, give him a longer contract, then it is about where the money comes in. You know, the first year he might be making a little bit lower, but it'll get higher as you go. So I just can't see our D-line without him, me personally. But again, I was one root for him to dominate. We've been talking about him wanting that money. He's set himself up for it. But here's another one, going back to the owner conversation. Does he want to stick around to see if this mess goes? Like, you know what I mean? Because, I mean, let's be very honest. These guys, these players are kind of like, dude, we know we haven't been vocal about it in the media and this and that, but you know it's something that's on their mind. And you know that, look, they don't want to be a part of it. A lot of people don't want to be a part of an organization that, even though they might be on the up and up, what people see the organization as is a dumpster fire or trash or everything like that. Because that's going to be the difference between getting, you know, these guys are great on the line, but why can't we get, you know, we're talking about Cole Hope in a minute. Why can't we get a big name linebacker to come here to play for us and whatever would have you? Because the money's funny at times, the ownership is funny at times, and these guys, they just don't want that name. Oh, you were at Washington? No, they don't want their name to be associated with that. So a lot of it is on him. But in my opinion, I say we got to keep him. We can't start to rebuild that defensive. That is our unit, that D-line. That, especially if we get Chase Young back and hopefully get him healthy this year, that's our unit. So we have got to solidify that line. In my opinion, I know it's going to be a steep price, but I think we should pay it. I think we should keep him around here and hope that he gives us all of that he gave us this year. The other side of that, as we've seen people, namely Zeke in Dallas, you give him a fat contract, and he kind of gets a little fat in the first year, then he loses weight in the second year, and he just has literally been non-existent. So much that I don't even think he had 100 yards on the ground in a game this year. You know what I mean? It's been pretty rough for him. So that's one of the things where it's like, grass is always greener, and you're always looking at, oh yeah, maybe you can go. But if we pay the man, we expect great things. Hopefully he does that. And we're all looking at this last season like, oh yeah, if he does that for us every single year, this is great. But that's not reality. So I want to keep him. But that money is steep, man. You're absolutely right. But is it worth it? I think it is. Most of the teams in the playoffs right now, if you look the Eagles, you look at San Francisco, both stout D lines, both solid interior, lines. And then who you got? Kansas City with what? Chris Jones. You know what I mean? And some of those guys on the inside. And then you got Hendrickson and some of those guys in Cincinnati that have been really proven and showing up as of late. So
DJ Reader.
Right. Exactly. You need to have that D line to stop the run and the pressure and just to make the quarterback uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And every one of our quarterbacks in our division is a runner.
Yeah.
So, getting them out of the pocket and getting them uncomfortable is something that we absolutely need. I say keep them. That's on me. But
so you're saying long-term deal is your wish.
I'm saying long-term, let's solidify it.
Well, and you bring up great points. I mean, the league is starting to come on notice where they always talk about your outside pass rush was most important. Well, they're also noticing now getting that interior push against the center and guards, and so the quarterback can't step up or he gets pressure in his face and has to run away is becoming more and more important and becoming an emphasis. The other thing, if you think about it, we talk about, say we let him go. Now you got Allen as our pass rusher, Ridgeway and Mathis as our plug the gap guys. Mm-hmm. That's also going to let the offense know kind of what type of defense we're running. Right now, when you've got Allen and Payne who can do both, you don't know who is the penetrator on that play. So if you need to double team Jonathan Allen because Phidarian Mathis is not, his first step is not upfield, it's to the side, that may be all the time you need to get a playoff. So that kind of takes away that element of surprise. The other part, though, that the challenging part with a long-term deal that we have to think of is two things. One, if we sign him to a long-term deal, this is the last season of Montez Sweat. After that, it's the last season of Chase Young. And so the next two seasons, you're having to make decisions on these guys. So it's just there's potential for a lot of money to be along that defensive line. But here's the biggest unknown when it comes to can you sign Deron Payne to a long-term deal. It has nothing to do with whether he wants it or not, because we know he wants to get paid. Is Snyder willing to pay him? Because what happens with NFL contracts, and it has to do with the sale of the team, is when you sign a long-term extension at the beginning of the new year, so in March something, when free agency starts, that's the start of a brand new league year, which is why they allow teams to exchange and go all elsewhere. The owner must have that money in an escrow account. So say he signs a 4-year deal for $80 million and 50 of it is guaranteed. Dan Snyder has to make sure that $50 million is in this account. Two things. A, does he want to? B, does Dan Snyder have that type of money? Dude is not swimming on cash right now with all the lawsuits he's dealing with. So that, at the press conference at the end of the year, Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew said the words budget several times. Yeah. When in our time as Skins, Commanders, football team fans, have we ever heard the term budget before?
Never.
No. Mm-mm. So that makes you wonder if, what do we have to play with? What type of money? Now, when Carson Wentz gets released, we're going to have between $30 and $40 million. I don't know what it is right now. But, if you sign a Deron Payne to a 1-year deal, if you franchise tag him and he's getting $20 million, you're going to have $10 or $20 million left. Is that going to be enough to shore up the offensive line, a linebacker court? Get draft picks? Is that going to be enough? Especially if we're close to that $30 million, is that enough to play with for the rest of the season, for the rest of the offseason? So that's a concern. Now, I'm going to present a scenario to you that I never thought could be possible. And my gosh, I know, Anton, you're listening to this. I wish Ab was listening to this right now, because I'm going to say something that's music to his ears. What if you could franchise Deron Payne and trade him? What would you think about that?
How does that even work?
Well, because you've signed him, he's on your team. So if you franchise tag him, you're committing to whatever it is. So this is a member of your team, no different if you were to trade Antonio Gibson or Terry McLaurin or anything like that.
Yeah.
What if you were to get a second and a fifth round pick for Deron Payne? Would you consider that?
Yeah, you're not getting the first. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think you'd get a first either.
A second is a solid pickup. So I mean, yeah, I mean, it would be a nice option, but franchise tag him then trade him. Is that right?
Hey man, that's what Harry Roseman would do. That's the Philly way of doing things.
Are we? Yeah, we're not Philly, man. They're openly trying to be the way they are. We're not them, right, man. I don't know. I mean, it seems possible, but anything in the business realm of side of it is very possible.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be like the dream scenario to do that?
Well, right, because that we're saving money and we're still being able to get return back from it.
We're getting better picks. If we lose Deron Payne, we're going to get a compensation pick for it. We lost Brandon Sheriff last year. We're about to get a third round pick back for Brandon Sheriff. Now, albeit it's all 32 teams get to pick in the third round, and then they give these compensation picks if you lose players. So we would get a third round pick for Deron Payne next year. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like essentially a fourth round pick. So yeah, if you could franchise tag him and trade him, even if you're getting a second, that's your chance to draft a rookie to take over that spot. The only thing I would be wondering is, what if you can't make a deal with somebody? Like, you better have this in place. Like, you better be saying, hey, Atlanta, we know you need a defensive tackle. Here's your chance to get Deron Payne. We will franchise tag him. We will trade him to you. You give us a second round pick and a 6. He's yours. Extend him. You got him. Here's your way to get a guy. So you would have to have that in place. Again, because we talk salary cap. Here's my thing. I'm going to let him go. Okay? But I'm not just going to let him go and ride with Jonathan Allen. I'm going to try and get a Tim Settle type replacement for him. A younger player, not even younger, someone that has been buried on a depth chart that can come in and spell Jonathan Allen. I don't want another big guy, that just takes up space. I want someone who can pass rush. But to try and go with the idea that this guy could come in and play a couple snaps a game, we're talking 5 to 10 max as part of a rotation, maybe 15 max, I should say it. But I would say I think we need to save some money. As much as I love Deron Payne, what he's become to us, I think we need to shore up the offensive line, and we may need to bring in a veteran, a free agent to do that. And I don't know if I can allocate $20 million to him. I just, unless he's, and I don't know with Sweat and Chase behind that, I don't know if I can get on board with paying 2 defensive tackles.
That's the other side of it, is having to pay not only him, but then in the next couple years in succession, having to pay Sweat and then having to pay Chase. And, even though the injury, Chase is still going to get
they're all unknown.
Some money.
Right.
Yeah. And same with Sweat. I mean, they're going to start demanding money, especially if Sweat has a year like he had this past year. But it is something. But and I know this was a funny thing, but it's a true point, considering and weighing the options. Just don't wait till the sale ends. Right now, Deron Payne is Pro Bowler. Right now, he's 11.5 sacks. Right now, all these accolades are on him. So if we're going to shop him, let's do that. Let's get this now towards the very end of the season, before it gets to the point where it's like, now we're stuck with, we have to pay him or cut him. You know what I mean? Let's start to market him if that's the move that we're going to make. We are opposite sides of it, but at the same time, when it comes down to finances and building up, we do need more money to build other guys in there. I mean, who knows? We can get it. You talk about Tim Settle. I mean, why not get Tim Settle back? I mean, I don't know. I mean, we'd have to work something out. Or even Ioannidis. Ioannidis, remember, he was gone. He was not happy with how things went, but he also wasn't happy with Sam Mills III. Sam Mills III is out. You have a guy that Ioannidis played with in Kerrigan, who actually, is Kerrigan still with us?
Yeah,
he's still with us. I thought, but he was a Pro Bowl. That's why, right. You know what I mean? But you have guys that it's a familiarity, and from my knowledge, we liked Ioannidis. I was very upset when Ioannidis left us. So if we're
that's a perfect example of what you talk about, a type of player who could come in and play and not be as expensive.
Right. And he knows the system. It's a solid fit. So if we are going to entertain getting rid of Deron Payne or trying to figure out a way to move on from him, then yes, let's look at some of those guys that maybe we had, or some of those guys that are maybe like you said buried in the depth chart. So we'll see, man. We'll see. But look, let's move on down that list, because the next guy on one of the other guys on there, I got to shout out Tar Heel Nation, Cole Holcomb. Now this year he got hurt, so he was not able to complete the season. But in each of his years prior to that, he's up in top 15, top 20 in tackles. He's getting over 100 tackles. He's dominating. Will, outside of my North Carolina love, and this is why I'm gonna let you talk first, because I don't want the bias to come out. What are your thoughts? Because we know there's kind of a cap to him, but we also know he is so deeply immersed in this defense. He knows the calls. He knows, where people are going to be and things of that nature, and he gets the job done. We've seen it. Now, the flip side is Jamin Davis actually kind of played great in his absence. You know what I mean? So it makes you think, oh, maybe we could move away from Cole and, get Jamin and maybe another rookie and start to really build that up with some athleticism. What are your thoughts on Cole, especially after this year?
Okay. I'll give you some facts. I'll give you 2 facts, okay?
Okay.
We need an upgrade at the mic. We have to have a middle linebacker, our quarterback of the defense, that is able to play all 3 downs and get everyone lined up. Jamin Davis may end up being that, but he excelled last year playing off ball. All right. He was not the mic. He was not having to do all that. And he played pretty well, but that's not him. So we need someone who can do that. Cole Holcomb slid into that role and, was playing, he was being the Cole Holcomb that he is. He makes tackles. He makes plays. Right. He's around the ball. So he could do that. He gets you said he gets a lot of tackles every single year. I mean, he had 140 tackles in 2021. So I'm going to name a couple of names that exchanged teams that had more tackles than him in 2021. I'm going to butcher this name. I'm not even going to try. The linebacker from the Falcons that went to the Jaguars.
Right.
Oluokun. Number 26, I think, was his number.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Roquan Smith was traded by his team. Bobby Wagner left the Seahawks and went to the Rams. Deion Jones was traded from the Falcons to the Browns for like a 6th-round pick. All these guys had more tackles than Cole Holcomb did. And their team said, go ahead. We're not going to pay you. So part of me feels like a high tackling linebacker is in that same situation of a running back. They're a dime a dozen. You can find one in the draft. You can find one on the streets. You can get somebody. So to Cole Holcomb, he's a good player. He's been a good player for us. A lot of value in the 5th round. Because of that injury, I'm intrigued to bring him back, as long as he's going to be a cheap deal. But if he wants to get paid based on 2021 stats, I'm letting him go.
Oh yeah. And I almost one of the things that I think you and I discussed is that if we can talk about money, if we can get him for cheap, if we can get him to stay for a little cheaper, and it almost makes me think of going into the 2020 season. And shout out to Ab, who was telling us, man, we need to shop Kerrigan. And he ended up going to Philly for next to nothing. And it's like, dude, if we could have brought him back here on $2 million, $1 million contract, you know what I mean? Something small, that would have been ideal. Even if he's just there to kind of be the leader and control things and settle the locker room, that would have been huge. So I think this is another one of those situations where, yes, he's not like those names, and some of those names are a lot flashier than Cole Holcomb. But I think that one of the things we have to do, definitely explore those options, because he's a company man. He comes in, does his job, great in-house. And I really love his heart. He's a hustle guy. He's got heart, but he's just, there's a hard ceiling on it, and he's not going to get, much better with that. So yes, if we have the opportunity to bring in somebody like one of those names, absolutely. But again, it comes into price. What are we bringing them in for, and how long are we bringing? Because I feel like we could stick with what we know and get Holcomb for cheap on a multi-year something, maybe 1 or 2 years, something like that. Keep it cheap. That's okay. We know that. We know we have that. Then if we bring somebody else in, will act accordingly. And if Holcomb has to sit, that's fine. He can help teach this guy because he's been around. I just feel like it's one of these things. Like right now, we have a nice little close net thing where we've had a pretty solid core from 2020 to 2020 to this point right now. Let's keep that. You know what I mean? Instead of switching it out, okay, who are we bringing in? Who they got to learn the system, and William Jackson was a man corner. He didn't fit everything like that. But that's kind of one of the things that it frustrates me because it's like we brought him in under the premise that he was going to be the guy, like he was going to be able to shut down the side or something like that. But he did not work in the scheme. And there wasn't an older corner to come in there and be like, hey, let's do it this way. This is what works. A lot of those guys are younger than him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I personally, I want to keep Holcomb here, and that's bias aside. I definitely want to keep him here because for your part, I think we can get him for cheap. I think we can he's not going to ask for this $6, $7, $8, $9 million contract. He's going to get a cheaper deal potentially, and then we can save money elsewhere. But I would rather get him and stash him than potentially let him go out in the market and then he goes to a Philly, a Dallas, and New York, and he's a thorn on our side for the next couple years.
Oh, he'd be a really good player in those defenses. Like right now in ours, we need a playmaker. If he's not having to be playmaker, he's a really solid piece. I'd love to give him a 1-year deal since he's coming off an injury. And I say that also recognizing the last thing we need to do is deplete an already depleted roster of linebackers and not bring back someone who's a starter. So yeah, like you say, if he's willing to come in cheap, if he's willing to do a 1-year deal, like let me prove that my, everything's good, I'm healed. Yeah, by all means. But I also don't want us to think that we signed Cole Holcomb so we don't need to address it. Because what about this idea? What if you decide to let Daron Payne go and put some of that money that you could have put in a long-term deal to Daron Payne towards some type of middle linebacker who can play? What if you go and get the dude Edmonds from Buffalo?
Ooh, yeah.
That would be nice. What if you really plug in somebody who can take over and allow Jamin to do what Jamin does because he's calling the plays, and takes over that. Like that could be something that could help make our defense a little bit more dynamic.
Oh yeah, I would love that. But then and again, this is all thought. This is me thinking about how we looked this past year. I would just, like you said, Daron Payne easily is a pass rusher and also a run stopper, whereas you have the Ridgeways and Fedarian Mathis coming off the injury, where it's kind of like they're unproven. Like they played well, but they're really unproven. And then last thing we need is like a gap right in that area where they're running right through to our linebackers. Because before, when they weren't dominating on that D-line, our linebackers were normally the first guys to get the tackle if it wasn't our secondary. You know what I mean? So whereas Terrell Edmonds would be great at that, and don't get it twisted, if we can get that situation, I'm all for that. I am all for that. But at the same time, I just it's you alluded to it. I just don't want to go backwards after we're like, okay, we're good. Like I could look at this defense right now and say I can start week 1 with them. They might struggle. And it's not going to be blowing it up, but they're gelled, they're meshed together. We need some pieces definitely, and it's going to start becoming finances. Okay, we're going to take 30 from this, put it over here. Let's be, and they talked about budget. Let's move it around. So that's going to be interesting going forward. I could definitely see that work, and I would love Edmonds on my squad. He's got the pedigree. That would be great.
Come on, he's from DC. Come on.
All right. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, that would definitely be great, man. Let's move on down the list. I think this is the next in line, and it has to be a quarterback. Taylor Heineke is each year proven himself a little bit more. Was able to get his 5 victories, kept us the shot in the arm, as we like to call him, all season long, and he has done. He did what we asked him to do. You know what I mean? It wasn't pretty all the time. It had us, squinting, not trying to look, that type of thing. But he came in there and he provided a jolt that we needed, and he helped us through the year. And to be honest with you, there was a point, even when Carson came back, where I said, I'm sorry, I feel the most comfortable that I feel with any of these quarterbacks is with Taylor. Now, we didn't see what Sam was going to do, and obviously we were told that he wasn't working. He wasn't there yet, but Heineke just knows what he's doing, and so for that, and we know he's a backup, and we know he's a crowd favorite, but we also know that he might not want to stay. Maybe he wants to go elsewhere. Maybe he wants to try a shot because we disrespected him. Okay, he came in after he lost the playoff game in Tampa. We let him start, and before we let him start, we said we're gonna test free agency. We get Fitzpatrick. Fitz gets hurt, unbeknownst to him, the hip situation, so he's out. Taylor gets the whole season. Then we do the same thing again, and we go get another high-priced quarterback. Bring him in, Carson. He lasts 5 games. Then he goes out. So Taylor's kind of sitting here like, I'll win in DC, and I ain't no problem with it, but y'all are doing me dirty. You know what I mean? And who knows? Maybe Taylor ain't gonna try to sit around and say, oh, am I gonna wait for somebody else to come in, or are you gonna let this little kid, this rookie, my guy Sam Howell, are you gonna let him come in and take it from me? So it's the disrespect from management that's come down to him, but we love him. We are all 100% on board. So where do we go from here with Taylor? I know that's your guy.
Yeah, it's a hard question, man. This is why I don't like. I'm happy I don't have to be general manager on this, right? Because here are my 2 concerns about Heineke. Is he going to be as effective in a different offense? Yeah. That was what his biggest strength when in Scott Turner's offenses. He knew where to go with the ball because essentially this is the only offense he's ever really run in the NFL. So he's known it for a while. So he knows where to go with the ball. He just doesn't have the ability to get it there at times accurately or with enough zip on it to really do something with it. My other concern is if the goal of the team is to give Sam Howell a chance, with the love that fans have for Heineke, is that good for Howell? Where if he starts to struggle, that fans are going to start clamoring for Heineke. Give me 1 second. I got a cough.
Yeah.
Sorry. So that's my other concern. Now, the positives, though, behind it are he has mentioned publicly that he likes playing here. And he also seems he's more humble than we thought. He's a confident dude. So you kind of wonder, is he cocky? He's not. He's confident, but he also understands his place in the league right now. He's like, I've been out of the league. I just want to be in the league. I want to play football. He says, I'd love to start, but there are only 32 of those, and not many teams are looking for a starter. So he kind of knows I can go in and be a backup somewhere and be happy with that. Mm-hmm. So there is a chance that he could come back here, and he does provide if something happens to Howell, if he falters, if he gets hurt, for 4 or 5 games a year, Heinick's going to keep you competitive.
Yeah.
So what you got there. Whereas if you do go out and go get a Jacoby Brissett, a Tyrod Taylor might be available for the upteenth time, to get Mitch Trubisky if he gets dropped by Pittsburgh because is that better than Heineke? Mm-mm. I don't know if it is. It's like it's hard for me to kind of have an answer on this because it's like I don't know if you really have much better out there, and if he's willing to. My only concern would be is he's not exactly the veteran that I want. I want like an Andy Dalton to be grooming Howell, and Heineke's not that. But so I'm giving you the biggest non-answer in the world. I'm just giving you the pluses and minuses.
Right. I mean, because there's so much that encompasses this question, embodies this question. You sit here and you talk about the offensive coordinator. Scott Turner was his guy. Absolutely. And then you're talking about bringing somebody else in, and unless this other guy's going to mesh it kind of where Ron Rivera is to something similar to what Heineke ran a year ago, it's going to be different. And if we have it different, how well can Heineke pick up on that? Then you got to sit here and think, what's the long-term goal? We've proven that Heineke's not going to be our guy. Unless every other quarterback falls off the face of the planet, even then we're going to be asking other positions because we've proven that he's not our guy. We just don't. I don't know what it is about Washington, but at the same time, it's just like, dude, we love him. We've seen what he brings to the team. I almost feel like how can you let him go? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like he's not going to demand all this big money. What is he still on we signed him on a 2-year contract, right?
We
A
did.
year ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he still has, or is this?
No, he's a free agent.
Yeah, he's a free agent. Yeah. So
You
I
could
mean,
be looking
does
at
he
$4
want,
million.
right? Does he want that? I mean, to his point, he said, "Hey, I just want to be a backup somewhere." But does he go somewhere and be a backup for a big name quarterback and come in and do right by them? You know what I mean? Like he's kind of built up this allure about him in DC. It could, I think it would be fine. He's been other places, but we bought into him. So I mean, when you're looking at it from just a player standpoint, and just we know what he provides, and the guys on this team they buy in. Terry bought in. You know what I mean? These guys are just like, they just talk so glowingly of Taylor Heineke that it's just kind of, it does kind of almost handicap us, where it's like we can't really get rid of him unless we are going to say we're going in this direction, we're going in that direction, we're doing this specifically. But we're talking contracts, we're talking money, we're talking coaches, we're talking ownership, we're talking, there's so many other things at play with Taylor Heineke that I feel like I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I'm like, we want to keep him. Everything says, hey, keep him. Yeah. But it's just it. I don't know that we can have an answer right now.
Right.
You know
it may be too early. You know, the other thing you got to think about is, I mean, does he want to be third string behind Sam Howell and Tom Brady? That's the other factor there.
Oh, wait. You mean 4 string besides Sam Howell, Tom Brady, and Lamar Jackson? Because
there you go. Yeah,
they're both coming. You know, man. We'll definitely see, man. Because hey, like we said, we all like Taylor Heineke, but
we love him, the nostalgia. But yeah, I'm good with giving the no answer right now. Like it's too early. It's too early.
Yeah,
we don't know who's a free agent, who else is going to be the free agent quarterback right now. I'm not ready to answer that question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So look, let's go on down the list. We have other guys. I know Anton was talking about Jeremy Reeves, who showed up, got into the Pro Bowl. I think. I mean, we're talking about that young secondary. Yes, I think we need to bring him back. We need to keep that secondary as intact, in my opinion, as possible, because these guys finally meshed together, finally gelling. And I think there was no more evident than the game after William Jackson III left. After we traded him to the Steelers, you just saw the word that everybody said is the phrase they said there's no communication issues anymore. Now, I'm not gonna they didn't say William Jackson was the issue, but they just said there's no communication issues anymore. So like we have to keep these guys together. He's proven himself, but not only in the secondary, but also on special teams. And that's something. I mean, we have Tress Way, we have Cheeseman. You know, let's start solidifying the pieces to this puzzle. He's one of these pieces that's really playing well. And we already saw the video of him getting the Pro Bowl thing where he said to Ron, I'll run through a brick wall for you. Let's stick with somebody like this. So I'm all about him staying.
Right. Yeah, this is a no-brainer. This is an absolute. It does seem like they want to see Percy Butler play over him. So I'm the biggest Jeremy Reeves, like, get him on the field. Let's play this guy. They don't. But he is a special team stalwart. And beyond Pro Bowl, I'll be honest, I don't really take much stock in Pro Bowl. His video is amazing, but what matters is all pro. Mm-hmm. And what also matters happened this season is when the media and then other players do their voting on who is, first team players. The outsider, the other folks nationwide named Jeremy Reeves as the special teams guy. So, like, everyone else knows that this guy's a special teams stalwart. He's not just a good player. He's not a Troy Apke of special teams, like, good player, going to contribute. He is, like, the stud there that they game plan around about stopping. So, yeah, give him a 3-4 year deal. Let this man finally have some peace of knowing I've made a roster and I've arrived.
And another thing with this, we have to keep this in house, because I'm gonna bring up a name that was also a special teams guy that we let go and just made a name for himself elsewhere. Is it Lorenzo Alexander?
Yes.
Stud for us. Just a special teams guy, played a little defense. We loved him, but cap money things just didn't work out. We let him go. I think he went to Arizona, maybe, or
Buffalo.
Baby Buffalo, he went somewhere and he absolutely balled out, was a perennial star on that team, and we were just kicking ourselves like, here we go. So again, it's special teams and everything, but at the same time, like you said, they all got a game plan for him. And I love that we have somebody like that and on a position that really doesn't necessarily, unless you're the kicker and sometimes the punter, you're not really getting that recognition, or the returner, you're not getting that recognition. And Reeves got it, and so many people noticed that, and a lot of that's your heart. You know, you have heart, you have passion, you go out there and ball out, do whatever you want. Like, people pick up on that, and they respect that, and they'll play for you. And he showed up, especially later in the season. So yeah, we definitely got to keep it.
Yeah,
definitely got to keep it.
I agree.
All right, moving down the list, we got Wes Schweitzer, versatile, can play several positions. I think we need to more so for the same reason I've been saying a lot of these guys, is because there's a camaraderie, there's a comfort in knowing, but also in the fact that we tried to bring in 2 linemen, they didn't work. I think it's pretty safe to say that they were underwhelming this year. So let's keep in a guy that if he can stay on the field, we know we can put him at different spots. And that's talking about that depth potentially, just in case if somebody else, we draft a guy or bring somebody else in that's maybe more suited for a position. Okay, fine. We can move him here. We can move him over here, and it can still kind of work to where we might have a hole here, but he can fill that. So I would say keep him, but a lot of that is also we still got to see what the moves we're going to make. What are your thoughts?
Very much so. What I think would be interesting to find out with Wes Schweitzer is, what does the staff feel about the other pieces? You know, they started Chris Paul in the game against Dallas because they wanted to see what he got, and he played relatively well. You know, Andrew Norwell is actually on contract for next season, and if you cut him, you're not really saving a lot. Like, you may only be saving like $1.5 million, maybe $2 million. So does it make sense to keep him around to be your backup, if you know, not have to rely on this guy as a starter? So if that's the case, what I'm trying to get at is, do we need Schweitzer if Norwell and Paul are there as backups, as primary backups at guard? Do we need, if we draft another guard, do we need a Wes Schweitzer? I'm not sure. It may be a situation where, like, we like you, we'd love to bring you back, but he may say, I have a chance to play better somewhere else. Like, you guys are trying to do a youth movement, you know, past it. However, the thing that he's got going for him, as you said, was versatility, because he did come in and start and play a right guard, and then he became our starting center at the end of the year. Yeah. He actually surpassed a proven center, not proven, but a guy who played center in college and in the pros, and he passed him on the depth chart as a better player. And Schweitzer came up as a guard. So, you know, he became a center, but he's not an actual center. So that versatility would make him, you know, helpful. So I wouldn't be upset if he comes back. I just kind of wonder if he's going to say there's other opportunities for me elsewhere, and he'll go elsewhere.
Well, on my roster construction, he's one of my 13 linemen. So
yeah, he would be. With you, his job is safe. That is correct.
He is good. He is good. Yeah. I need 3 lines. All right.
Yeah, you do.
First tier, second tier, and third tier. Yeah. All right, let's go.
I'll never forget that. That was so funny.
Wide receivers, everything.
How many of these guys are you gonna have?
When random guys weren't even on the team, like, yes, bring him. He's big.
You did.
Oh man, yeah. So I'm with that, and let's stick right with the O-line and Tyler Lawson.
Yeah,
he had the injury too, and that, I think that's going to weigh more heavily on it, because I do think health has been the biggest issue. Even when we had Sheriff, we always knew he was going to get hurt. We need consistent O-linemen. When is the last time that the announcers or somebody said, oh, this O-line for Washington has played together for the last 36 games or 3 years or, you know, whatever. Like, we need that consistency on O-line. And that's why I like Schweitzer, because he can move. He is very versatile. With Tyler, I know he has the ability, he can do it, but that injury is just kind of like, I mean, if we don't have anywhere else, okay, but it just goes along with that consistency. And so he would be a casualty for me.
So yes, it's interesting because the past 2 seasons he's had to come in and start for us at center, and he's done a good job. He's
Right.
become very serviceable. It's one of those things where you can't see how good he can be until he actually gets out there, because the part of the center's job is making blitz calls and kind of sticking around with that. But I'm with you. The bigger problem is he hasn't been able to finish this the last 2 seasons either, and now he's put us to a situation where we're playing a Wes Schweitzer. We're moving a guard over to play center 2 years in a row. We can't be doing that anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm good with bringing him back to the point of saying, yeah, but you're going to have to earn this roster spot, and also knowing that if we cut him, I don't know where else is going to sign. So there's a chance we could put him on the practice squad and have him for us. So I'm good bringing him back, but I'm not relying on him next year. I want a draft pick that we're grooming to take over.
Right. And that's the thing with a lot of these linemen is, albeit they are good and they have shown signs of, okay, we can really build with this. The health is the ultimate thing that I think is holding, at least leaving me with reservations about, these guys, to the point where, with, like we mentioned with Schweitzer, his versatility is key, because going back to even Gibbs, like with those Washington teams, you had to have multiple positions. If you're on the O-line, maybe you had to play a little special teams, or maybe you had to do a little, this and that. D-line, same thing. You had to have a lot of positions, because those guys were a lot of those teams were versatile. You look at Brian Mitchell, who came and played quarterback for us one time, kick returner, punt returner, wide receiver, running back, whatever. And that wasn't all of them, but that's huge. And they stayed on the field. Health is going to be a major issue. And I'm going to stick with the O-line and talk Trey Turner, because it's the same. It's the same. It's the injuries. We already know coming into this year that the Steelers didn't re-sign him. They had a trash O-line when they let him go. We picked him up, and when he was on the field, he wasn't great. So, what was our deal? Was it a 1 year with him? Because in my opinion, I'm saying cut. I'm saying, hey, didn't work. Just wipe your hands with it and keep moving. Because I didn't see anything. Norwell, there was games where you're like, oh, okay, all right, you did decent. I wish you would do this all the time, but okay. Trey Turner was, there are times he just gets blown up, and he's just having the whole. I'm just like, dude, no. So for me, done. I see what you wrote on. I didn't see what you.
So I'm gonna go up to Trey Turner. I'm gonna extend my hand. I'm gonna shake his hand and say, Trey, congratulations. You've had a great NFL career. Please retire. Your days are past you.
You're done. It's over.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that.
Yeah. And I also say that, meaning that I want Chris Paul to be in that role. I want us to do an upgrade at guard, and Chris Paul could be someone as a backup.
Yeah.
No, we don't need to be worried about Trey Turner.
Now, look, so there's a bunch of kind of other names that we had on here. We talked about Cole Holcomb earlier in that middle linebacker position. So David Mayo, he's one of those guys. One of the things that we know about him, he can call the plays. He can set up the defense. We know he's good at that. And that's about it. I mean, that time I saw David Mayo trying to run with the receivers, it was like, no. So this was one of those picks that was 51 or 52 of the 53. It's not correct. 53 or 54, right? Where he's been cut, he's been re-signed, this and that. We know what we're getting out of him. But this is where I feel like upgrade is necessary. Cole Holcomb, I can make an excuse for you to stay, but we don't need to continue to go to the John Bostics and the David Mayos and continually bring back that, because that's bringing back the mediocrity. We don't want that. Let's move up from them. So that's my opinion. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, he may be better than what we had behind him, but I mean, it's if we bring him back, it's because you have no guarantee to make this team, and I'm hoping you're our 53rd guy if you make it. You're the last guy that I say, all right.
Now, two guys on defense that did kind of make a little bit of name, or they showed signs, they showed glimpses of definitely highlights, definitely towards the end of the season. Your boy David Johnson And
Danny Johnson. I've spelled that wrong.
I was looking at that. I was like,
who's David Johnson?
I was like, David Johnson. Yeah. But Danny Johnson and then F.A. Obata.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely times, definitely towards the end of the year, Danny Johnson, you've been talking about him a lot. But F.A. Obata is one of those that you hear his name come in and you hear him coming from time to time. But then for me, all I can remember is we blocked the kick at right before the half in the first Cowboys game, and F.A. Obata just kind of just lackadaisically runs to the ball where if he picks it up, he could have taken it back for two. I mean, we don't know if he would have done that, but I mean, if he would have done that, changes the whole dynamic of the game. So I love what he brings to the table, and especially with Chase kind of getting back fully into the groove, I feel like we're going to need somebody like that. And I like him a little bit better than maybe Smith Williams and some of those guys. But what are your thoughts about Obata and then Johnson? I mean, are these stick keepers?
I think Johnson more so than Obata. I mean, I think Obata is a rotational piece. Like you said, we've got behind him, you got Casey Toohill, James Smith Williams, and F.A. Obata. Those three kind of back up both Chase and Montez. So if he comes back, great. If he doesn't, we can probably find someone that does similar stuff as to what he did. He's a role player. He can get you some snaps. Danny Johnson, I think, has earned the right to come back and be a part of our mix. He started against the Cowboys. That was also, injury related. He made improvements as the season went on, significant improvements in December, and that was big. This is where it's kind of like, oh man, losing Chris Harris is even more of a detriment. Now, if you've got Danny Johnson as your fourth or fifth corner, it could be worse. We just gotta upgrade what's in front of him. Yep. He cannot be the three. He cannot be as you and I keep saying, we need someone behind St. Juice who can come in and play. And it can't be Danny Johnson. There's got to be someone, a buffer in between there, because St. Juice can't be relied on to stay healthy right now.
Right. And we cannot afford a drop off, which is something that we had to deal with. You know what I mean? We had finally got to the point where St. Juice was covering their number one guy, AJ Brown in that Eagles game all the way around. But if you can't stay on the field, so trading over to the offense, and I'll say one before I say the other, because I think we already know where the other. Jonathan Williams, he came on late due to the injuries, but I mean, he obviously showed out in preseason, but especially in that Eagles game, that second Eagles game, some of those runs that he had where he was busting for about 8, 9, 10 yards, and he's carrying guys, and you're double taking like, is that Brian? Oh, that's not Jonathan Williams. Whoa, okay. Yeah. You loved him. You've been talking about him. You're the one who said he should have made the top 3 sticking on the team as far as that running back. So what do you think? You think we keep him? I'm all about it, because he's proven it to me in that running game.
Yep, I am, because I think he's going to be, dirt cheap. And I think, I think he'd be willing to stick around. I think he's going to be battling for a roster spot. So why not? Yeah, absolutely. He should flash it.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Would you put him over? Obviously him and Jared Patterson, battling for touches. Would you put him over Jared Patterson if you had to?
Definitely. I think the fact that he started against the Cowboys showed that he's ahead of him. What I'm unsure about is come next year is like, what's going on with J.D. McKissick's recovery from his neck injury?
Yes.
So what happens there? Because I think Williams it can be a part of the mix. To be running back 3 if there's no McKissick, or he'd be running back 4. But yeah, I think he's the type of player who'll probably make the practice squad next year, and then with attrition, injuries, etc., get bumped up at some point.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see it.
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely see it. And last and least, I'm not even gonna say not least, Cam Sims. I'm not going to lie to you, Will. Forgot he was even on the team. I know there's times it's like, Sims, what, really? What do you think? I don't see a spot.
I'll give him this is his plus. He's a pretty good special teams player. He, along with Reeves and Holmes and Milo Eifler's usually down there. He's usually down there making tackles on punts, so that may be his saving grace to making the team next year. But I am out on the Cam Sims helping us as wide receiver. We need a tall receiver to be grooming instead, because he's had so many years to show that he could be consistent, and I don't know why, but it just doesn't happen. It's just, he's the preseason favorite. He makes flashes in preseason and then doesn't do anything in the regular season for 2, if not 3, if not 4 years now. I'm sure we can find another big-bodied wide receiver to groom as a pass catcher. So, yeah. Sure, if you want him for special teams, but he is not on my 53 going into the offseason at all.
No, and as you heard from my previous statement, wasn't on my 53 last year, but somehow it's on the teams.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. That's one of the spots that I would sacrifice for another lineman. Just letting you know, Cam.
Yeah. Yep.
So and going forward, where are there any other places that you think we need to address that might not be guys necessarily with expiring contracts, but maybe on the way out?
Yeah, there's a little bit of talk. Chase Roulier, we got to think about the fact that we've got this expensive center. He's going to cost $12 million next year, and he hasn't finished the last 2 seasons. How's he going to come back from that injury? And is there something? The problem is cutting him doesn't really give you a whole lot of cap savings, as in I think maybe 3, maybe 4 million. Like I think if you cut him, you have a dead cap of 8, so you save 4. But that could be spun into somebody else. The other one I kind of wonder about is Logan Thomas. He was pretty outspoken in this offense this year. He didn't really have a very impactful year. Maybe he was hurt, with the injury recovery more than we realized. I'm not exactly sure, but he's another situation where you're only going to save like $2 or $3 million by cutting him. I think that could be something the following year that he gets let go. But again, if you're talking $3-4 million, what if that turns into someone else that can be impactful? What if you double those and put them into a linebacker or into, what if you put it into that's Deron Payne's, long-term deal. His first year, he's making $8 million because he has this big signing bonus, So there could be some looks in that, but you just got to think right now, like we're paying William Jackson and Landon Collins right now to have gone away. So that do you want to add more in dead cap where you're paying for guys to be gone? So that's the only thing, but there could be some movement there.
Yeah, and that goes back to our OC conversation because if you bring a guy like Thomas Jones in here, not only is he assistant coach, but he's also Thomas Brown. I was thinking of the Bears running back. I don't.
That's my beloved running back from the University of Virginia.
Oh, I know it. Oh, boo. But if you bring in a Thomas Brown, who's the assistant head coach, but also the tight ends coach, you think about some of those guys in for the Rams. Higbee has made a name for himself over the last couple of years. So if we bring him in, it makes me want to think, okay, all right, let's see what you got, Logan, because we have talent there. We have Rodgers, we have Cole Turner, even though he totally didn't do anything for us this year. But we have Bates, and then, as you know, Logan Thomas. And Logan Thomas had a couple
Amani
moments.
Rodgers, too.
Right. So these guys have had moments, but there's been no consistency at tight end, and that is such a huge part for our offense because we do run a lot of the play action offense, the bootleg and a lot of that stuff where you're rolling out, and he's that main target. So, and speaking of Cam Sims, we're talking about having a big target towards the red zone. Cole Turner, Logan Thomas, these guys are the big bodied guys that we're supposed to show out. But like you said, Logan Thomas, the injury, he definitely did not look like himself from the year before. I almost wonder and worry that that's the kind of what we're going to get from Chase Young this next coming year. You know what I mean? It's just getting back into what they were. So it's going to be interesting. But I mean that plays into it. That plays in because I too am. We've been talking about the tight ends all year. They have been just lackluster and underwhelming.
Non-factor.
Right. And so, I mean, they were supposed to be the big help, the big safety blanket or the safety net for Carson Wentz. Mm-hmm. And they didn't help with that at all. You know what I mean? So, that's something that we're going to definitely have to take a look at.
I would be so surprised if we cut Logan, only because I feel like he's still the best of what we got. And I know there's a lot of talk that they like Rodgers, they like, Cole Turner, they like Cole Turner and whatnot, but like, I don't think they're ready to take his spot yet.
No. Oh no.
So I think if that happens, I would be like, we need to sign a tight end one. Right. I'm not ready to anoint any of our guys.
if that happens, I think we might have our eyes somewhere else. I mean, that would be the only real reason. Because, in my opinion, Cam Sims is the guy that if it's up to two of them, Cam Sims goes for me. Because even with Logan at the percentages he is, and maybe he's at 65, 70%, he's still better in my eyes, and he can kind of roll with how the offense plays better than Cam Sims. So I would definitely want to keep him, but let him know his job's, not in jeopardy, but let him know, we're watching.
Exactly. I'm with you.
So
I'm with you.
Hey, there it is. There's going to be a lot more conversation to go around about free agents, different players. We're going to start diving into positions and seeing how they did. What are we looking forward to coming into the new season, leading us into the free agency and the draft, and where we should go and what positions do we need to harp on. And all of this will all be happening at the same time that hopefully Dan Snyder will be removed from Washington. We're hoping. And dare I even say praying? We need to call in a higher power, Will.
Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. Absolutely. Yo, so ladies and gentlemen, we are so glad that you are here. We know we almost went on for 2 hours, but there's so much information, so many things going on with Washington. And look, it's just going to keep coming. It's going to keep coming till we get back around to 2023. We've seen some of the teams that were playing. The teams came out. That's going to be quite interesting. And then another Bears matchup. That's right, Nick.
Playoff bound, man.
Let's go. Oh, man. So, look, hey, we are going to go ahead and let you go. This is Washington Football Weekly. You know who it is. It's your boy, Sean Spencer, my guy from steamy South Carolina, Mr. Will Kramer. We will definitely be back with you next week. Real quick, I'm going to show you all the shows we have in the Let's Talk Football community. Peace, ladies and gentlemen. Take care. Oh, yeah.
Stand up, left hand up. Who are we?